And we're live.
Everybody gather round. Now we see the taking round this town. Everybody gather round. Now we see the taking round this town.
Oh, good evening, everybody. How we doing today?
I'm good.
Good, good. Thank you for that wonderful intro, everybody. That intro. What do we call that composition? Sir?
This is the theme to Maui's show.
This is the Maui. This is the Echo Show theme song.
That's right.
Ian Leith original. Thank you, Ian. Ian, our Reggie Watts, our band leader.
In my dreams.
And then my co-host tonight is my very very dear friend Stephanie
Hello.
Iverson. So
Hello.
Stephanie works with me with the Echo Theater Collective, and she's also the leader of our Reverb ensemble that just did an awesome cabaret at the Oak Park Arms.
Right before everything got crazy, thank goodness.
There's a Mike Iverson II saying glad to be here and
Mark.
applause. Is that a relative
Called
of
my
yours?
dad by his wrong name.
It says Mark
Oh,
Iverson
You
too.
said Mike.
You did say Mike, Maui.
Did I say Mike? That's okay.
That's all right.
That's all right.
Mike check.
So I just did one of these streams for Oak Park Porch Fest. They did a couch concert with Rich Klevgard, so that should be up on their page now. Check it out; it was awesome. And he gave me a shout out, but he called me Jim. He was just like, and thanks Jim for running the StreamYard. And so I was like, my name's I put in the comment, my name's Maui, not Jim.
That's
LOL.
so close though.
But Jim Jones would be a pretty bomb name. That'd be pretty dope. Alliteration, I like
Well, I
it.
don't know. Jim Jones?
Jim Jones.
Was that the Kool-Aid guy?
No, wait, is it? No, Jim. Is that the Kool-Aid dude?
Was that Jonestown?
Maybe I
Yeah,
don't want
Jonestown.
that name. Oh boy. So we got a pretty exciting show tonight. I'm excited. A little bit later on, we're gonna have Ada Cheng. If y'all don't know Ada Cheng. Ada Cheng is a professor and storyteller, absolutely incredible. And I had the honor a few months ago to do a storytelling event with her at Dominican. It was awesome, and we're gonna talk. She's gonna do a story, and we're gonna talk a little bit about the effect that the current pandemic has had on our Asian American communities. So I'm really excited about that. Mora in the comments just said, "Maui Jim, isn't that an overpriced sunglass brand?" You know, I had that moment. I did the Wayne's World moment. I was just like, wait a second, Maui Jim. All right.
Maui is also the brand of my girlfriend's shampoo right now.
Yes, I make shampoos as well.
Oh wow!
I
didn't know you made those.
render human fat, and I make soaps and shampoos.
It's like Fight Club.
Hashtag Fight Club.
True Renaissance man.
Cheryl says hi, Jim. Hi, Cheryl.
You gotta change your name now, Maui.
That's Cheryl. Cheryl is the founder of the Oak Park Porch Fest. So
Pretty soon you're going to be Slim Jim.
Super Easy to be Slim Jim. We were just talking before the broadcast. I've lost 154 pounds since September 21st.
I think I found it.
While we talk here, I love to talk a little bit. Let's give you the topic for today is what are you doing for self care, or what are you watching, or what are you doing to keep calm through this shelter in place?
You're looking at it.
The music that kind of keeps you centered. What
Yeah,
about
just
you,
playing
Steph?
music, watching as much music as I can. Sorry, Stephanie.
No, you're good. You're good. playing music, watching much TV.
Playing music, watching as many of my friends everybody's live streaming now. That's the way to see live music now. This is live entertainment is really taking a hit with all this.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to support everybody. I really feel bad for the comedians.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell jokes to nobody but your teddy bears.
For sure. We're going to come up with some, maybe like Echo Studio sessions and host some of the local musicians. And hopefully by Monday, we'll be able to get maybe that GoFundMe we were talking about, do that rapid response fund for our local artists and like gig industry people.
Cool.
So I think that would be great. So, but Steph, what are you doing right now? What are you doing to take care of yourself?
Ian, I'm doing very similar things. Trying to use this free time I have to work on my music. I got out my old flash drive. I got a bunch of songs that I wrote in like high school, and I've been working on them.
Now's the time to go digging in the vaults, man. You know those piles that you have, you start making over the years. I go digging through now, and I was like, man, I got a sticker collection. I never realized that. Cool. Look at these notes. These half-finished scribbled lines of stuff. I need to finish those thoughts,
Yeah.
Lola Cochran says, "Hi, Stephanie Iverson."
Oh, hi, Lola. She goes to my church.
Oh, that's awesome. Big shout out to Lola. What about shows? What are your shelter in place shows you're watching right now?
I'm catching up on Better Call Saul.
Oh yes, I just caught up on everything on Netflix.
Amazing acting.
Maybe a few episodes behind on the current season they're in right now.
Yeah, I rewatched all the Pirates of the Caribbean movies.
There's only about 2 of those that I like.
There's only the first 3 on Disney Plus, which I didn't even know a 5th one came out.
It's not good. It's really bad.
I used to love those movies. I saw them in the theater with my mom, and then the 4th one I also saw in the theater. That was during my big Johnny Depp phase. And then I didn't even realize that a 5th one came out until I saw it on Google, and I was like, that came out 3 years ago. And
Cheryl says to check out Self-Made on Netflix. Have you guys heard of that? It's a 4-part limited series on Madam C.J. Walker, starring Octavia Spencer. I haven't watched it yet. It's in my queue to watch, but I hear it's amazing. Because right now so Kate and I, what we're watching right now, we're going through all of the MCU in universe chronological order. So that's a big thing. But then when I'm not doing that, I've been watching Lock and Key, which I keep telling. Did you watch the trailer yet, Stephanie? Are you lying? No.
There's so much stuff to catch up on Netflix. It's hard to. I can't believe anybody that says they've seen it all. I'm like, there's so much on there.
Yeah. John Sacedo says Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, oddly timely. Oh, I can see that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been Lock and Key. I don't know if y'all have heard of that one. That's really fun. It's based off of a comic book written by Joe Hill, who I think it came out that he is actually the son of Stephen King, I believe. And it's this house called Key House, and there's all these mystical keys that do all sorts of things. There's one key that can take you anywhere. There's one key that can set things on fire. There's one key that makes a little keyhole open up in the back of your neck, and you put it in, and you turn it, and then a door to the inside of your brain appears.
Can you imagine being Stephen King's son?
Yeah,
he was at C2E2 this year. He walked past us. We got to see him.
Stephen King?
No, his son.
Joe Hill?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The bedtime stories is that?
But it's really good. It's really good. It's a little ABC Family or Freeform feeling, but I really dig it. I love my cheesy sci-fi fantasy shows like that.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention. What else I've been doing with my time? The video, that labor of love I made of Three Little Birds. The Bob Marley video I made with my fellow musicians.
We reposted that on the Echo page.
I saw that.
Thank you very much.
I want to direct everybody to that because I want everybody to see that the musicians are still making music and sharing with everybody.
Yeah, that was
a fun job. That was a fun job. That's one way I've been kind of occupying my time.
Yeah,
sitting at home, and getting everybody could I get the footage from everybody and I put it together. It's
Can you give us a little taste of that right now?
What's that? Oh,
Can you give us a little taste of that right now? That's one of my favorite songs.
Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Singing, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Woke up this morning, smiled with the rising sun. 3 little birds, each by my doorstep, singing sweet songs of melodies pure and true. Singing, this is my message to you. Oh, my mom always said, don't worry about a thing. Because
that's beautiful.
If things always work out in the end. If it ain't worked out, it's not in the end. This is my message to you.
Yes. That's what's up. That's what's
I
up.
Need that, yeah.
That made
Finding
me
little
happy.
Marley these days, right?
Yeah. I read a book written by Rita Marley about her life and her life with Bob, and man, it's fascinating. It's always interesting to get those like intimate looks at people, especially the ones that don't hold back and don't just like deify the person after they're gone. You kind of get that holistic view, like here's a complicated full person.
Yeah.
Lola Cochran said while you were playing, "This is so fun," and Cheryl gave you mad claps.
Hey.
So
claps right back.
Make sure that you get that shout out. That was beautiful.
We're all in it together.
Yeah. So I know you're not going to do this song stuff, but we got a few more minutes before our next thing. So I would you see your eyes going wide. I put you on the spot. But that could you play just like a little bit of that Southern Nights song, because I love it so much.
Oh, the Southern Rain song.
Southern Rain.
Yes.
Is something that happens in the South.
Yes. Sure.
Yes. This. So Stephanie played this at the cabaret that they did at the Oak Park Arms that the Reverb Ensemble did. You want to tell people what the song is about? This song gives me life, so it makes me happy.
For about a year, me and my girlfriend were long distance, and I lived here, and she lived all the way down in Tennessee, in a small town close to Nashville. And last year when we were still long distance, I went down there for Valentine's Day to visit her. And it was like warm and rainy, and we could go for walks, and it was nice. And then I had to come back up here, and it was February in Chicago, and it was cloudy, and it was snowy, and it was freezing. And I hate the cold. So I wrote this song about how much I hate the cold and how much I love my girlfriend. I'll sing a little bit for you.
Give you a single.
It was a day of tight throat and blinking up, and it's so cold, and I hadn't heard a bird sing in so long. The snow tears at me, baby, the winter gets to me. The winter rips at my soul, the clouds weigh heavy on me. And I miss you and the sun and the rain. As she dances through puddles, her fingers through sunbeams, I wish it were me, caressing her cheek. I'll send a snowflake in an envelope, posted for Southern rain. And I can't be there, so I'll send raindrops to kiss your face. And I can't be there, so I'll send raindrops to keep you safe. And I can't be there, so I'll send raindrops to kiss your face. And I can't be there, so I'll send raindrops to keep you safe.
Oh, oh, I love that song so much.
Great.
I love that song so much. So our guest just arrived in our virtual studio, so I'm going to bring her in a second. Before I do, though, Lola said, "Wow," and Mark, not Mike, said, "I'm such a proud dad."
You're embarrassing me, Dad.
No such thing. No such thing. It was a wonderful song. I also want to make sure to let people know that our next show will be on Friday. Um, we will have Gavin is our co-host. Ian, our wonderful band leader, will of course be with us. And then we have Dima Ali, Dr. Regina Kim, and our musical guest Charles Torpy. So we're really, really excited about that. Dima and Dr. Kim are going to talk about um, the drive that there's been to make masks for our healthcare professionals and whatnot. And Gavin is actually in the chat room right now. Said hey to everybody. So we'll look forward to having you on Friday, Gavin. So yeah, that's about it with that. Now we're gonna bid a farewell to our wonderful band leader, Ian. Ian, thank you so much for your wonderful tunes. If you want to give us a little play out, you want to play us out, keyboard cat, as we bring in
Thank you, Maui. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Ada.
See you next time on Friday afternoon.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. All right, bye, Ian.
Bye.
All right.
He's awesome.
Now we're gonna bring in. That was awesome. Now we're gonna bring in the wonderful Ada Cheng into the room. Ada, can you hear me?
Yes, yes. Can you hear me?
We can hear you, and can you hear Stephanie?
Hello.
Hi, how are
Hey,
you?
we can all hear each
Good. How are
other.
you?
Nice meeting you like this.
Yes.
Virtual space. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what we have to do now.
This is what we do to stay connected. This is what it's all about. This is what our. It's funny enough. This is the theme for our season with Echo Theater Collective was connection.
Okay.
And so, as this happened and derailed our season, we had to, cancel our plays and whatnot. How do we stay connected? And that's why one of the first people I thought of to have on this show was you.
Thank you so much.
Because of the work that you do in terms of storytelling and keeping people connected. And so, yeah, I just really was on my heart to reach out to you and spread the good word of what you are doing.
Thank you so much. It's
thank
tough
you.
time. It's this is really interesting, even though people are physically apart, that we feel stronger need for connection and intimacy, right? The more we are apart, the more we feel we need one another. Uh, the past 2 weeks after we started working remote from work, and everyone is in sort of self isolation. Um, I started, making connections with people, talking to people that I haven't talked to for a long time, and that was just something that I really cherish. Is I wouldn't have the time to slow down. As much as this is a disaster, a tragedy, a pandemic, but what's good out of it is I'm able to slow down, that I'm able to connect and reconnect with people that I haven't talked to for a long time. I just texted them and asked how they're doing in general, how are things. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I stay just busy. And so that's something I actually cherish, the connection I made during this time.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I've been thinking about like what are the good things that come out of of an event like this. I hearing about um, how the pollution, right? Like if you look at overhead shots of
Right,
cities before and after, and see
right,
how much less pollution we're putting out because we're all staying home, not in our
right.
cars, like pushing out that you toxic gases into the world, things like that. Like that, that's something that I hold on to. Like hearing people talk about, like, hey, I'm able to be home with my family more than I
Mhm.
have been in years, and rediscovering those connections, and like, oh yeah,
Mhm.
like maybe we weren't built to sit in the cube for
Right.
half of our lives. Maybe we were meant to be together and in community with each other. So those are the things that
Mhm.
I
That's
try and
really
hold on
wild.
to through this. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Ada, if you wouldn't
that,
mind, could you so just give us a little bit about yourself and your journey, your story. So am I correct in that your main job used to be teaching as a professor,
yes,
but now more so your main job is storytelling, right?
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. The interesting story. I started teaching at DePaul from 2001 until 2016. And this is a true story. I was one morning, August 2015. I woke up. I thought to myself, I think I'll do better as a stand-up comedian. And that's really true. I was watching my three cats sitting around me, and they're screaming, "I'm hungry, hungry, feed us." And I have a cup of coffee, and I thought to myself, I think I'll do better as a stand-up comedian. The reason being, at the time, I was teaching, they say, undergraduate students, graduate students. I have undergraduate classes. I used a lot of comedy clips as a way to provoke class discussions.
Hmm.
And so just the day before I went to bed, I was thinking, I was looking through YouTube for comedy clips that I can use for my fall classes. And so I woke up and I thought, I think I'll do better. Mainly because I found at the time that comedians were actually doing rather poignant social critiques about our social issues. And then I started taking classes at Second City. I fell in love with it. I would go to Second City to take classes, and I felt alive. I felt like I was living my life. And then the second time I took it, I stumbled into storytelling. And so I was that whole summer 2015, I was very much enjoying myself. I was having a great time, feeling alive again. And then in fall 2015, when I went back to school to teach, um, everything felt very different. You know that feeling when you fell in love with someone or you fell in love with something, then you
Hmm.
realize that someone that you're with or that something that you were doing just isn't a thing or isn't a person anymore. That was what theater and performance was for me at the time. At night, I would be feeling passionate. I would be living my life. And when I went to school to teach, it felt like a job. Uh, I felt like I was doing a job. And I realized that I loved my students a lot, but I realized that I wasn't in love with teaching anymore. And I was a tenure professor, right? Got tenure. This is another important story. I started as this position in 2001. Um, uh, Achieved this position, got this position as a foreigner. And so I got tenured in 2006, which is it's not easy, right? As a foreigner and as an immigrant. And so by getting tenure teaching at the university, I achieved my so-called American dream, right? I
Hmm.
was I was there, I achieved, I arrived. But here's the truth, I wasn't happy. I realized that toward the last few years when I was teaching, um, I just didn't feel motivated anymore. And there's a reason for that. The last few years, I was an award teaching teacher, award winning teacher. And I know every quarter students would tell me, you changed our mind. You changed the way we think. And I used to believe that. But in the last few years, I also realized something. Yes, I changed the way they think, but I also know once they leave the classroom, they will go back to business as usual, right? Nothing would have happened. They will change their mind, but then once they go back to their home environment, the society, the community, nothing will change. In the last few years, we're talking about 2010 to 2015, our society experienced tremendous social changes. For example, Black Lives Matter, right? Um, that I realized that it cannot just be the changing of their thinking. What I really want students to do is once they leave the classroom, once they go back to their own environment, their own community, their own groups of friends, and they will say, I need to make the world a better place for everybody. I need to do something, right? There is a something that I need to do. I may not know what that is, but I need to do something. But here's the thing. I realized that the way I was teaching at a university, I could only get to people on this part. It is very difficult to necessarily motivate people to act, right? To engage in social changes.
Mm.
People don't engage in activism or social changes or change their behavior because they change the way they think, right? Facts do not necessarily motivate people to do the right thing, right? Facts by themselves. People would do things for others, engaging, making the world a better place because they feel compelled to, because they're emotionally compelled, motivated to do that. And I felt at the time that toward the end, I didn't feel that emotion. In my class, I taught theories and constructs and but I only get to students here, their mind. I wasn't touching their heart.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really wanted to do is there a way that I can connect with them emotionally? As we were talking, connect with them emotionally, compel them to act after they leave the classroom to make the world a better place. Essentially, is emotion. How do I bring that emotion into the classroom? Or fundamentally, I was really questioning the academic discourse, right? Is there an alternative genre or medium through which I can continue to do social critique? I'm a trained sociologist. I provide a structural analysis, sociological analysis. So I was searching for different medium through which I can continue to do sociological analysis, yet connect with people not just intellectually but also emotionally.
Mm.
And so 2015, I stumbled into storytelling, fell in love. I stumbled into theater performance and comedy, fell in love. By the time I went back to school in fall 2015, I realized, I was living two different worlds. One is with passion, I felt alive. The other one is I realized I was dead spiritually. And imagine this, I was in my early 50s, not 20, 50, right? I was 50. Oh, almost right. I was 51 at the time. I didn't need to leave my job. I mean, I could, this is a lifetime position, right? I could have this position until 65 when I retire. And if I don't retire, continue forever. And so I could do this job for another 15 years. It was a lifetime employment. And so I was very much struggling with it. What did I have to give up? Right, salary, right, middle class lifestyle, benefits, insurance, status, prestige, respect, and then and so for a long time I was very unhappy. And every night I would tell myself, go back the next day, it would change and see, and then I would be miserable until one night I realized I had to make a decision, right? Because what I realized is this: I do not want to be dead before I die. That's a good way to put it, right? I was already dying spiritually. I didn't want to be dead before I die. So and I'm happy to the point where I became a toxic person. That it was, because I was so unhappy. My unhappiness was affecting everybody around me, including my cats. So one night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. One, and I'll tell you, my cat really was the major reason. So I have this beautiful cat. She came to me one night, and she wanted to be petted, and I literally yelled at this cat and said, "You go away." And you know what went through my mind? I literally saw myself becoming this abusive person because I was so unhappy. And it reminded me of my father, right? We know this father go out to work, right? Oppressed in their workplace, come back to oppress their wives and children, right? And I saw myself becoming somebody toxic,
Yeah.
um, becoming somebody I didn't like. And I thought to myself, whatever they're giving me, they're paying me, it's just not worth it. So I asked myself one question before I quit my job. Uh, you know, I asked myself, am I going to be okay if I have to wait tables and wash dishes? And the answer is yes, because I will be happy. So that night, right before midnight, it was a dramatic story. 5 minutes before midnight, I started typing emails and I said to my colleagues, "Dear colleagues, after 15 years of teaching, it's time for me to leave." And I just hit send. And that's how I quit my job. That was the story.
Wow. So that's so fascinating. It's funny because I think that our paths kind of mimic each other. I mean, we're come from two very different backgrounds and very different upbringings and whatnot. But our paths are. I had a very similar, moment where I was at work and I was like, oh man, like, what am I doing? I blinked my eyes and I'm in my mid 30s and I haven't done
Mm-hmm.
any of the things that I really, really wanted to do with my life I always used to ask people like, what did you want to be when you were a kid, and when did you
Mm-hmm.
let go of that dream? And I realized that like I never even reached once for that dream, you know,
Hmm.
and it made and I was also I think much more of a selfish person then as well.
Hmm.
I was doing everything for me. I wasn't doing it for community, and
Hmm.
and that made me cruel. Like
Hmm.
when I was doing life for Maui, I think I was not as nice of a person. I was not as empathetic of a person or compassionate of a person. That's
Hmm.
fascinating. Um, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what's going on right now.
Hmm.
We were talking about how you do so much in terms of preaching what's important in terms of like being the author of your own narrative and being able to tell your
Hmm.
own story as opposed to having someone else tell it for you. And that's something that's
Hmm.
very near and dear to my heart as well. And I'm just in awe of the way that you are the author of your story and the way that you
Hmm.
empower other people to be the author of their story. And
Right.
so my question is, as we see this, the panic around this pandemic, how we see, white supremacist dominant culture um, kind of start to grab a hold of the Asian American narrative in this
Yeah.
country and do what they will with it, because we always need to have a villain in our story, it seems,
Mm-hmm.
and it seems like they're trying to make that villain the Asian American community. And so I
Right.
wanted to get your thoughts, your meditations on that.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is, if you think about the coronavirus, this pandemic didn't create anti-Asian racism. It only heightens it,
Mm,
right? And I think it is very important for us to think about historically, we have always associated disease and illness and viruses with immigrants. You can think about, in the 1800s with Irish immigrants, typhoid, right? In the 1980s with Haitian Americans with HIV, or SARS with Chinese Americans, or Mexican Americans with swine flu, right? Or West Africans with Ebola in 2014. So this, in the sense, has its own historic. We need to put it within the historical context that in this country we have a historical record and a pattern of associating the racial order, right? The immigrant order with disease and illness and so what this is really telling us, showing, and so I oftentimes say that this pandemic heightens it, the existing xenophobia and racism against Asian people of Asian descent, and what we are seeing. What I find really interesting is, in this country, the way we think about racism is oftentimes black and white, right? And Asians are positioning in a very delicate position. We are on one hand being seen as the model minority, but we also see how this pandemic can turn model minority into the yellow peril at the same time,
mm,
right?
mm-hmm,
But yet, at the same time, as a model minority, we're consistently being seen as the perpetual foreigner. And so, does this surprise me? No, we see how the media or, even the universities, our president, discount anti-Asian racism, but also normalizes it, right?
yeah,
By, for example, calling the virus as Chinese virus or Wuhan virus, fully aware how it is going to lead to racist assaults against people of Asian descent. And so that's the part that really frightens me. That we take anti-Asian racism, that we discount it, we don't, we take it for granted, and we normalize it. And so that's the part that frustrates me, because the way we think about race in this country is so black and white. So we don't necessarily want to think about the racism against uh, different groups. And
mm-hmm,
so what this incident, this pandemic show, is how racism, xenophobia can come in very different forms. And in this case, it's anti-Asian racism.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. Hmm. Stephanie, did you have any questions before we get to the story?
I don't think so. I think you have such a great way of articulating your thoughts. I'm really drawn in. No wonder you're a storyteller.
Oh, and here's the thing: there's a reason why I want people to tell stories. You have seen me tell stories, and it's not just personal. It's not just about subjective experiences. It's not just about subjectivity. In my story, it's really about uh, delineating the structural context, right? Structural inequity is very similar to what you're doing, right, Mo? The sort of demonstrating, highlighting the structural inequity under which that we live in, and to show how the structural inequity shapes our different and shared experiences. So that's what I do with storytelling, because as a trained sociologist, I'm using storytelling to connect the personal and the structural. and not so different from what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing, why storytelling is so important and why I produce different shows, particularly for Asian Americans the platform for Asian Americans to speak, is because we cannot have one single narrative representing one group. When I started out, I was one of the few Asian American tellers, and if I want, I could be that token going around over and over again. But yeah, that's the problem. I cannot be the only face, right? Because if you only have one Black person, one Asian person, one Latino, then you're tokenizing it. And so, why do I create these platforms? Part of it is to cultivate younger generations of tellers because I can't be the only one, right? What's
Right.
the way? How do we diversify, right? Is how do we do equity? That's the same thing that you're doing with eco theater, right? We cannot talk about diversity without talking about equity. How do we do equity? You have to cultivate younger generations of tellers, actors, change makers, right? And
Absolutely.
so because I realize I can be the token over and over again, and there are benefits that come with token, right? And
Absolutely.
so that's part of the pattern that I really want to break is to for us to recognize no one single narrative can represent one group, right? And the more that we have more Asian American, Asian voices, the better. And so part of my work is really about that, cultivating younger generations of tellers, and but also making our voices mainstream in the sense that I never see my work as marginal. I see my work as mainstream, right? And I have at one time I have a teller, white teller, told me that my work, my shows are niche, right? A niche in the sense because it cater to uh, uh, people of color. Well, if you see most of the shows are also white dominated, that's also a niche,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Right.
People don't realize
So the whiteness is already embedded, right?
that.
So I never see my own platforms or shows or as a niche. It's as mainstream as any other shows.
Hmm.
And so for us, it's really to challenge that whiteness embedded in a lot of the platforms, right? And so that's part of what I'm doing, and very similar to what you're doing as well.
Yeah. I think that we're seeing more and more of this seismic shift. I think we're seeing more creators of color than ever
Mm-hmm.
telling nuanced stories. I'm shocked of the spectrum of black masculinity that I've seen portrayed in media in the last like 5 years is mind blowing. For the longest time, I had huge hangups about how I presented my masculinity
Mm-hmm.
and seeing things like Moonlight and Atlanta and all these even Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, her best friend, but why am I blanking on his name? He's the best. I can't remember his name.
Mm-hmm.
But all these amazing portrayals of of this vast spectrum of masculinity,
Right.
or seeing the larger queer community represented in media. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It is affirming that that these people are starting to be able to get their platforms. Now, I think that often these things are being exploited by studios,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're like, oh, like this is what's in right now, so we're just gonna give
Right.
them the platform. But I think that the nice byproduct of that is, well, now our creators and our artists now have their foot in the door. It's not
Yeah.
100% pure why they're doing the thing that they're doing,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but now we have our foot in the door and we can start pushing that door a little bit more, a little bit more.
I mean, you think about it. I mean, there's a reason why you have the Echo Theater Collective, right? There's a reason. It's a platform,
Hmm.
right? We can't just tell stories. Part of it is so you need to have a control over the platform,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, we have to. We have
Right.
to. We have to have
You need to
our
have
people
control.
actually
The
creating the platform.
Absolutely, you need to create the platform itself through which, right, need you to how you have a sense of control of how stories are told, how they're viewed,
Hmm.
right? It asks the questions of who is seeing it, who is the audience, from
Absolutely.
whom are we producing? And there's a reason why you're doing what you do, very similar to what I do. It's really about that. It's not
Hmm.
just telling stories, but really it's about to what extent do I have control over my narrative
Yeah.
and how it is presented and how it is being seen and perceived.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a realization that that we come to, and I think that the secret that you find is that story, I think, is the first step to true equity, is story, and being able to
Mm-hmm,
control that story and be able to be the author of your story. That is the first step. You know,
mm-hmm,
since since I made the decision to leave my job years ago and start this theater company and start on this journey,
mm-hmm,
the change in my life, the happiness that I have inside of me and the wholeness that I have been able to achieve, I never thought that I would have.
mm-hmm,
The friendships I have forged, the relationships I have made, and then the purpose that I have found. I'm the happiest I've ever been,
mm-hmm.
and that doesn't necessarily mean that like I'm rich or anything like that because money has nothing to do with it. It's the realization that the true richness comes from finding my family, finding my
Mm-hmm.
community.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
And the issue is really about your legacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it fundamentally, this is very similar to this pandemic. Sort of physical sort of distancing that we're doing forces us to really ask the question: what's really important in our life,
Mm-hmm.
right? What matters, right? What's important? What do I cherish? And then you fundamentally have to ask this question: what's your legacy? Because I'm at an age where I have to ask myself, what's my legacy? What is it that I want to leave for the younger generations? And so there's a reason why, in some way I insist on doing things the way I want to. It's because I have particular visions that I want to accomplish, and that ownership and the implementation of that vision is very important. And I do, have a sense of what that legacy should be, what I can pass on. And so these are the questions that we have to ask ourselves, right? What's important to us in life, and why do we even exist,
Yeah.
right? What's the point?
Yeah. We could talk about this all day. You and I love when you speak on these issues and
Mm-hmm.
take us to church. But we don't have that much time left, and I really want people to hear the story that you have to share with us
Okay.
today. So I'm going to give you a single, and if you want to tell people what your story is and hop right into it, everybody, this is Ada Cheng doing some storytelling.
Hi, thank you so much. So this is a series of exchanges between a student and I at a university where I'm a full-time staff. So I work as an education and outreach specialist for on issues related to gender-based violence. And this message was sent to my unit, even though the issue may not be specific to what I do. Dear university staff, hello. I want to report an insulting incident that happened to us today. My friends and I were at a building trying to grab some coffee from the coffee shop. We were waiting in line, and finally, when it was our turn to order, we stepped forward. However, during that short time, we heard an absurd racist joke that the people at the cashier made, saying, "Watch out for the coronavirus." As everybody knows, the coronavirus is a global issue that has taken away more than 500 innocent lives. Treating us as the virus is both humiliating and insulting to the people who are suffering and fighting for that contagious disease. It is very unfortunate that this occurred during Black History Month, the month that we all believe everyone should not be discriminated by the color of their skin. I hope you examine this issue. We sincerely want an apology for this inconvenience. Student. Dear student, thank you for the message. I'm very sorry this happened to you. I would like to meet you in person to discuss this situation further. Let me know when you can stop by. Ada. Dear university staff, thank you for your kindness. We were all furious about the incident. However, after knowing that there are people who actually care for us minorities like us, it gives pride knowing that we chose to come to the school. Again, thank you for offering us options to deal with the matter. But we have decided not to make a scene. Dear student, I don't think you will ever read what I'm going to say here. However, I do hope at some point you will tell the story on your own. I haven't been able to sleep for days since I received your email. That last sentence, we have decided not to make a scene, hit me hard. That sentence had filled me with sadness. It feels like someone has driving a knife slowly into my heart. I'm not going to die from it, but my heart aches and bleeds with each gentle cut and push. Your message was the first complaint I received, but it would not be the first one I have heard. Since the outbreak of the coronavirus, we have seen an increase of hatred toward Chinese people, people of Asian descent, or Asian Americans in general. Physical assaults have taken place, racial slurs hurled, suspicious looks cast, masks put on specifically when Asian people are present. Otherwise, socially conscious people making jokes and references about coronavirus and Chinese people. Businesses in Chinatown plummeted due to misinformation, xenophobia, and racism. They come from all sides. In a world where racism is often seen between black and white, discrimination, prejudice, racism, and xenophobia toward and against Asians are discounted, taken for granted, and normalized. So much so that even UC at Berkeley briefly posted something along the line like xenophobia is a normal response after the outbreak. Our own president insisted on calling the virus Chinese virus, knowing fully well that a pandemic will bring out pre-existing hatred, xenophobic sentiments, and racist assaults against people of Asian descent. Different universities sent emails warning students about coronavirus, yet very few made statements denouncing anti-Asian racism. We don't label any germ, disease, illness, or virus white when they wipe out Native American tribes. Why do we label Corona Asian? This pandemic shows how easily we, as Asian Americans, can go from being model minority to yellow peril in this country within seconds. I was so sad that I started crying when I met with the university administrator to discuss this issue, hoping to push the university to issue a stronger statement about this concern. I have to admit that it was embarrassing to shed tears in front of a colleague whom I met for the first time, but my sadness overflew and my tears started dropping. But what I want to write here is not about a virus. It's about that last sentence of yours. We have decided not to make a scene. I truly see you because you remind me of my younger self. When I believed that people would understand where I was coming from and empathize with my position if I were polite enough, respectful enough, articulate enough, or liked enough. And then it dawned on me one day my degree of politeness, respectfulness, or likability has little to do with whether people can grasp the complexity of issues. For some, they understand them all along. In my culture, or our culture, I was taught since I was young to be quiet, to not speak up, to not challenge authorities, and to keep peace and maintain harmony. I had to work very hard to develop my own voice and to have one, including leaving my homeland, cutting off people complicity in perpetuating my inferior status in social hierarchy, and most importantly, getting rid of my inner noises that told me I wasn't good enough. When I was younger, I tried to balance between having a voice and wanting to be liked, having ideas and opinions and being seen to opinionated and loud, and telling people how I really felt and what I really thought, and not wanting to alienate everyone was my truth. I still struggle with that. And I'm in my 50s. The reality is, there's no balance. It is a lose lose situation for me as a woman. I do have the benefit of racial perception. I'm hardly seen as militant or aggressive as an Asian woman, even when I am, compared to a black woman who can easily be seen as aggressive, even when she's simply being assertive. But the worst part is this: when you don't practice speaking up for yourself, you end up losing the only voice you have, your own. I want you to remember this. Silence can be a strength, but it isn't always a virtue. Being quiet doesn't always bring you peace. Being polite doesn't always keep you out of trouble. Being respectful doesn't always get you the respect in return. The story is not completely mine to tell, it is also yours to share. But please learn to tell your own story, as I can't always tell stories for others. Learn to shout on top of your lung. Make a scene. Be the troublemaker. Be the trouble. It's time. Ada. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Thank you. What a powerful testimony. Thank you. Thank you so much. Ada, can you please tell everybody where they can find you?
The best way, check my website, www.renegadeadajen.com, or follow me on Facebook, Dr. Ada Jen, Renegade Ada Jen. They should be able to find me on Facebook.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you. I'll make sure to repost that on our page as
Please,
well.
yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Ada. We're gonna wish you a fond farewell. Be safe. Stay
Thank you.
healthy.
Yes.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye. Bye.
Oh,
Wow.
wow. What a powerful, powerful, powerful story
Yeah,
that
and
was.
so well articulated.
Yeah, that was incredible.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh, whew.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on that stuff?
I don't even know. I'm
Yeah,
like my brain is
yeah.
incredible.
I told you she is a fierce and powerful warrior. Let's look at some of the comments that we had
Hmm.
during that. And Salma, sorry I had to block you, but you were posting so much that I just couldn't keep up with what other people were saying. Um, so we had Christina Perez, who also teaches at Dominican and is a very dear friend. Said thank you for this discussion. Thank you. Charles said powerful critique. Um, let's see. Lola said tokenism is the unrecognized nightmare of affirmative action and other sponsorship programs. History begins with story. Um, Papa Iverson said our individual stories are the foundation for everyone's future.
Hmm.
Um, we had a lot, yeah, so many great comments. Mama Iverson, you got the both parents in here. My parents are not here.
You can have my
uh,
parents.
yeah. Hi, Becky. Mark Iverson said, thanks, Ada. Gavin said, incredible, and
Hmm.
reminds me of so many of my experiences. Um, thank you again, Ada, for those powerful, powerful words.
Hmm.
I think that touched a lot of people. We'll make sure to repost this. And everyone, if you like this, please repost it. Please let your friends know we're doing this Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And coming up this Friday, we have Dima Ali, Dr. Regina Kim, Charles Torpy on the show. We will also have Gavin, who is in the comments right now, co-hosting with me, and of course, as always, our band leader Ian Leith. Um, so we started with the first show doing an affirmation to end with. And I thought it would be cool to do a musical affirmation. So I asked Stephanie if she could share a song with us, because Stephanie is also a singer songwriter and fantastic at that
Oh,
as well. And so tonight's affirmation is going to be a song
nice.
from the wonderful Stephanie Iverson. Stephanie, any thoughts before you go into your song? Any thoughts on the evening?
I I'm so fascinated by her story and the message and the kind of things that she's gone through to get to where she is now. And as she was telling her story of like realization of when she realized that she wasn't happy at her job, I even see that stuff in people my age, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wild how our jobs and capitalism weighs on us, and
Mm-hmm.
how even now we're realizing how much rest can restore us and help us see more clearly. And I know I'm feeling that even now, like
Yeah.
not even in my midlife, I am having a lot of those similar questions. It's very human, and I'm very inspired by how Ada found her way.
Yeah, and I think it's different for every person. Like, you might have that realization, you might find your bliss and find your path, find your hero's journey at an early age. You
Hmm.
might find it later in life. Ada found it in her 50s. I found it in my mid 30s. And so for the people listening out there, I would urge you to take the reins, take the pencil, and be the author of your own story.
Hmm.
Right? As soon as possible.
Hmm.
Because the sooner that you do that, the sooner you will get on a path that I think will be much more fulfilling. It might, and I'm not going to say that it's going to bring, financial gains or anything like that, but what I will say, it will bring um, internal gains and spiritual gains, and make you whole in ways that I don't think um, the traditional American dream can do.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, this
um,
is a
yeah.
time right now where we're all just kind of sitting back and thinking things, and it's nice to imagine that the human race will come out on the other side of this better than we were before.
Yeah. So I'm going to hand over the reins to you, Stephanie. You're going to close us out with the song. Thank you so much for co-hosting with me and for
Yeah.
talking to me earlier today. Not handling this distancing from my friends and my family, and I do consider you my family very well. I love you very much. Everyone, enjoy the musical stylings of Stephanie Iverson.
Everyone send Maui virtual hugs. Maybe if we send him enough, it'll feel like a real hug, which we all need right now. I'm gonna end on kind of a lighter note. This is a new song that I've written, so you'll have to excuse me if it's a little rusty. Um, this is a song about kind of realizing who the people in your life are that you need and who the people who aren't. The chorus says that I don't have to spend my weekend with anyone who's treating me bad. For right now, don't spend your weekend with anyone. Obviously, we're staying home. so, um, but so another thing to kind of muse over as we're all kind of on hold in society right now. For now, this is called Weekend. We'll see if it changes. I don't have to spend my weekends with anyone who's been treating me bad. And I don't have to spend my free days with anyone who's been making me feel sad. Yeah, I don't have to spend my weekend. Now here's what's up. If someone isn't quite stepping up, then shoot 'em down, down, down. And here's the tea. If he doesn't treat you like a queen, then leave. Listen here, it's a new year. If they don't spark joy, then leave them at a secondhand store. 'Cause I don't have to spend my weekend with anyone who's been treating me bad. my free days with anyone who's been making me feel sad. You can't guilt trip me, convince me, go ahead and get mad, but I don't have to spend my weekend. And I'm sure he's got a million excuses all lined up, but he won't say sorry, and I'm sure that she wants you to let it go so that you can party. But it'll hurt in the morning, so put on your makeup. You're worth even more than it costs, and if they don't acknowledge that, then leave them on red. Cause I don't have to spend my weekend with anyone who's been treating me bad. And I don't have to spend my free days with anyone who's been making me feel sad. You can't convince me, guilt trip me, go ahead and get mad, but I don't have to spend my weekend with people who make me feel worthless, or the hypocrites, or the liars and complainers. I'm so sick of the blamers. We're two grown adults, so we could sit and talk, but if you're gonna scream and whine and say it's all my fault, then I don't have to spend my weekend with you. I'm sure I'll find another way to make it through. It might cost some tears, it might take a couple years, but I don't have to spend my weekend. And I don't have to spend my weekend with anyone who's been treating me bad. All the drama. And I don't have to spend my free days with anyone who's been making me feel sad. I only get 2 days off. I only get 2 hypocrites who make me feel worthless. The liars and complainers. I'm so sick of the blamers. And I don't have to spend my weekend. No, I don't have to spend my weekend. No, I don't have to spend my weekend. Thank you. It's all about self-love, y'all. All right. Howie, I can't hear you. I don't know if that's everybody or just me.
That's because I didn't unmute my mic.
All
Good
right.
call. I was saying, Friday, Dima Ali, Dr. Kim, Charles Torby, co-host Gavin Pack, and as always, musical stylings of Ian Leith. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful
Yes,
evening.
thank
And remember to
you.
always, always echo love.
Yes.
Peace out.